We live in a world in which children are said sometimes to be texting more than they're speaking. We live in a world in which people say they're connected, but actually they don't even know where they are. They might not even know where they're standing. And so there's a kind of connectivity going on at the electronic level, but in terms of the actual positioning of their body, their proprioception, that is to say, what angle their body's at, where they're standing, what effect they're having on the world around them, whether they're standing in a pedestrian crosswalk while texting with cars hurtling towards them. This is an example of the way in which, as we have evolved a massive and highly complex, sophisticated brain, we've created technology that overstimulates us. We've created technology that, in aid of helping us to achieve things and helping us to communicate, in fact, has overstimulated us to such a point that we have built such a huge amount of stress, overloads of experience into our physiology that we've reduced the brain's computing power down to about 2% of what its capable power is. And in neuroscience, scientists say that on average, people use about 2% of their available brain power. Those are the pessimists. The optimists say about 10%. Nobody hears any argument about 15% or even 11%. The human brain has a number of unique achievements. One of those unique achievements in the mammal kingdom is minimal use of existing brain power. The bonobo chimp and the bottlenose dolphin, both are mammals with magnificently sophisticated brains. As far as we know, they're using 100% of their brains. They don't know how to accumulate stress yet. We've learned how to accumulate stress, but we haven't learned how to employ age-old technologies for removing all of that stress. And consequently, we're rapidly retarding this beautiful, expansive, sophisticated brain that we have. There is an apparent paradox that, it seems as though the results of effort are greater and greater success. But this is really only taking a very limited view of the word success. Let's say, for example, a giant boulder rolls down into a chasm or a valley that at the bottom of which there's an important trade route. And our old friend Archimedes, again, had a similar situation to this, where 500 men were not able to move a boulder that was blocking the trade route. And so the greatest minds of the day were trying to figure out how to get more beasts of burden and how to get more men to move that rock. And Archimedes' solution was a lever. You put the tip of the lever in there, you have a fulcrum, you have a good place to stand, you pull down that thing, and one man can move the boulder. Do less, accomplish more. And so, do less and accomplish more is the principle that we're employing, for example, when we're employing leverage. I think Americans say leverage. But we have the ability to get a massive amount of work done with a tiny amount of effort, compared with using a massive amount of effort and getting a tiny amount of work done. The whole human endeavor is about this one chain of thinking. How can we collectively do less and accomplish more, do least and accomplish most, and if possible, do nothing and accomplish everything? Parents who have children who are constantly engaged in electronic screen entertainment, who are constantly engaged in handheld devices, who are constantly engaged on various kinds of entertainment functions they can have in the home electronically, and the parents feel frustrated. They know that the children follow the parents' example, but in some cases the parents are following the children's example, and it's a vicious cycle. Nobody knows who's following whom, but as it turns out, there's not that much presence of mind. There's not that much awareness of what one's doing, where one is, and what kind of effect one's having on the environment around oneself. And so parents come to me very often, they say, I'm frustrated about this. How can I change this? And I'll say to them, it's very simple. Be an example. Practice your meditation twice a day and create charm in that process of being lively, creative, interactive. The mind of a child, just like the mind of an adult, always will move toward the greater charm. Whatever is more charming than what I have in my hands, my attention is going to go there. This is natural. the reason why children are so absorbed in all these screens everywhere is because there's nothing charming going on in the environment around them. And so their mind is gravitating to any point of charm that it can find. We cannot blame the charm, and we cannot blame the child's mind and its nature to do this. What we can blame is the lack of charm in the environment, the lack of charm in social interaction, the lack of charm in being somewhere that is relatable, somewhere that is communicative, somewhere in which we're having an experience of unity together and finding the joy of that. So we cannot guilt children into paying attention to social interaction with the family. Guilting them doesn't work, giving them a guilt complex about it. What we can do, though, is we can ensure that there is a level of charm higher than what they'll see on the screen in one-to-one or in group interaction. And the only way to do that is to make sure that our own physiology is free of stress, so they're not running to their screens to hide from the stress that they feel radiating from us. That we have to be sure that the environment of communication with us is lively, interactive, intelligent, creative, joyful, and then they will want to photograph that and put it on the screen and send it to all their friends. My good news for you is that I see that all of the icons of peace and enlightenment who we recognize culturally coming down the long corridor of time, Krishna and Buddha and Moses and Jesus and Mahatma Gandhi and so on. These people who we look at and say, they apparently almost uniquely had access to some kind of broad experience that the average person has no access to. They are the icons of this, and we hark back to them. What would they say? What would they do? How would they behave under the current circumstances if they were living my life? And we draw inspiration. All of that's very good. We have to remember something. We have exactly the same brain as all those people. In fact, if anything, as evolution has allowed us to progress, perhaps our brain is even more sophisticated than their brain. And what meditation does is it gives us the capacity to have an inner experience in which we wake up the full potential of our mind, we wake up the full potential of our brain, and we begin to realize that each of us has the capacity to be one of those whose behavior we're historically separated from, but who've become the icons of peace, the icons of wisdom, the icons of knowledge. Every human being has the same brain as all those people had, perhaps even better brain. So I'm writing a book, and the book is going to be entitled Omnipresent. It's a provocative title in some ways because it's going to be investigating how, if there is any one omnipresent thing, and we're going to have to draw the conclusion whether scientifically or whether we draw that conclusion spiritually or theologically, that there must be something or someone who's omnipresent. If there's any one omnipresent thing, then by definition, that thing is present in all places at all times, simultaneously. And if that's true, then there's no possibility that you are not that omnipresent thing. If you are that omnipresent thing, what are you doing about it? If logically we can agree that omnipresence cannot be an exclusive quality of somebody, because omnipresence being exclusive means it's not omnipresent. And so omnipresence must be an all-inclusive phenomenon. Since it's all-inclusive, and since we agree that omnipresence exists, you must be it, I must be it, we're all that. And what are we doing about this? What are we doing about the fact that we are as if waves, but on an ocean of consciousness? There's an ocean of consciousness, and each one of us is like a swell or a wave on that ocean. But what are we doing about exploring the way in which the wave has an oceanic baseline? For this, we need to meditate. And my book is going to come to the startling and possibly provocative, I hope it'll be provocative, conclusion that Omnipresence is something that every human being has a native and intrinsic right to experience, and that meditation is the direct method to get that experience right away and to begin to live our birthright to be omnipresent. The way that the world could change if we could begin to explore our unity, and not just as an intellectual and emotional concept, but as a real concept by removing stress from our bodies collectively, it's almost unimaginable how beautiful the world could be.